When someone tells you they have ADHD, what's the first thing you think of? Man, she must be scatterbrained 24/7. Isn't ADHD like a superpower or something? ADHD isn't even real, you're just lazy. So does that mean you procrastinate like a lot? Aren't boys in elementary school the only people who get diagnosed with ADHD? I always thought ADHD made people more creative. Okay, so there's a lot of different opinions floating around about what ADHD actually is, who can have it, if it even exists, and several other misconceptions about this very neurospicy condition that I've had for as long as I can remember. I don't think it takes the sharpest tool in the shed to recognize how harmful some of these misconceptions can actually be, but I did want to focus on something very specific that I have been asked many times in regard to my ADHD and how it affects my life and my career as an artist. And this is also actually a topic that I have been thinking about a lot lately and have just been thinking about a lot throughout my entire life, so I really wanted to dive into this and talk about it with you guys. How has ADHD impacted my experience as an artist? Has it helped me? Has it made me more creative? Does my imagination run wild 24/7? Am I more likely to think on the fly or be spontaneous with my artistic decisions? These are all valid questions, and I understand why people ask them because I know that there's a lot of different ideas that people might have about what ADHD actually means and how it affects people. If you're new to what ADHD even is, I'll give you a very brief rundown on the condition. ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. It's a chronic, incurable, lifelong condition that can cause difficulty with focus, impulsivity, hyperactivity, sensitivity, and often results in low dopamine levels and executive dysfunction. Sounds lovely, doesn't it? I've seen a lot of talk about whether or not ADHD is this magical superpower for creative people for those exact reasons. The short answer is no. It's definitely not a superpower, and most of the time it causes me more harm than good. I will, however, say that there are some very minor benefits to ADHD that I've taken note of over the course of my life as an artist, and I'll be sharing that with you guys today. Let's go all the way back to 2003. I was just starting elementary school and quickly became obsessed with anime and video games the moment I was introduced to them on channels like 4Kids and Toonami, and got my first hand-me-down game console from one of my cousins. Seeing all the beautiful artwork from the media I really loved made me decide I wanted to become an artist, no matter the cost. I'd sit at my dining table just drawing away for hours and hours. My grades were absolutely horrendous because I couldn't focus in school, I was getting bullied, I had no actual friends, but art was really like my escape away from reality. I might not be able to control the chaos in my brain and in my physical environment, but for the hours I spent hyper-focusing on a drawing, the world went silent and I could just indulge in my craft. You caught that, right? Hyper-focus. It actually sounds kind of cool, doesn't it? But in a lot of ways, it's actually a bit of a double-edged sword. I couldn't fathom spending more than 5 minutes scrubbing dishes or doing math homework for more than 30 minutes. But if you sat me down in front of a pen and some paper and some colored pencils, then I would literally just be hyper-focused and in the zone for like 5 hours straight. It's a pretty convenient superpower, as I know some people call it, but that superpower would prevent me from taking care of my basic needs, tuning other people in the world out completely, and whenever I'd be pulled out of my hyperfocus, it'd feel near impossible to jump back into it again. I'd find myself coming out of a hyperfocus episode with an empty stomach, a full bladder, painful hands, bloodshot eyes, and the aching back of a 50-year-old man from hunching over for so long. As I've gotten older, I've learned to actually utilize hyperfocus more to my advantage and have gotten a lot better about timing myself and having alarms for taking breaks and just overall organizing my time better to prevent those mishaps. But I sometimes still find myself caught up in those moments where it just feels absolutely impossible to pry myself away from whatever task I'm fully absorbed in. Perhaps this is the one a lot of you are most interested in hearing about: creativity. I think it goes without saying that having ADHD doesn't automatically mean that someone is going to be more creative than a neurotypical person, for example. Nor are neurotypical people incapable of being extremely creative people overall. However, one aspect that I do want to talk about in this segment is how colorful my headspace can actually be as someone with ADHD, and the unique ways that I'm able to find inspiration and ideas as a neurodivergent individual. Now, I know that might sound a bit weird, but bear with me for a moment. ADHD can definitely make a person's brain feel very scattered, and I've always equated my neurodivergent mind as being similar to looking into a kaleidoscope, and I've even made an illustration and a comic based off of that concept before. Because of that, I found that I'm more likely to be inspired and more likely to have an array of ideas come my way, sometimes to such an extent that it can be genuinely overwhelming for me. I think a lot of ADHDers are very capable of forming more abstract concepts and ideas just because of how our brains are naturally wired, which can actually be pretty useful. But as you can imagine, that's also a double-edged sword. Having a lot of ideas, a lot of sources of inspiration, and a lot of just things overall that I want to do can be great, but it can also be completely paralyzing. Not knowing what to prioritize, having so many things you want to do, but none of them feel perfectly right enough to actually act on, getting too distracted by inspirational media that it takes you away from even starting anything, having so many works in progress yet being unable to finish most of them, stretching yourself so thin and doing so many different things that you burn out quickly, imposter syndrome as a result of being a jack of all trades, master of none type. The list could go on and on. I think this sense of heightened creativity has been both my greatest asset and my greatest flaw. As an artist living with ADHD, I've let so many opportunities and ideas slip through my fingers simply because I physically couldn't bring myself to do them. While on the other hand, I've been able to give myself a pat on the back for learning how to be a pro at problem solving, organizing, and weeding through the jumbled mess that oftentimes fills my brain up like an overflowing cup. It's helped me discover new art styles, new creative mediums and outlets, new hobbies, new goals, while simultaneously making me crash into the depths of burnout and paralysis. So before I move on to the next topic, I did want to quickly share that my spring clearance sale is officially live on the Prismano shop, and if you aren't familiar with my small business, I run an art shop called Prismano where I sell different merchandise like apparel and stationery and all kinds of goods like accessories and plushies and such that feature my artwork, and I'll share some of it on the screen right now. And I'm running a super big spring clearance sale. We have up to 40% off site-wide, and it'll last until March 29th at 11 p.m. So be sure to get your goodies before they sell out, because a lot of these items are also going to be on final sale. So I will not be restocking most of the things that do sell out from my shop, just because I want to make more space to bring in some new products that I'm going to be launching for you guys very, very soon. So if you love cute, dreamy, and super aesthetic goods like stationery, apparel, accessories, plushies, etc., definitely go check out prismano.com for up to 40% off. And again, this sale is only lasting until March 29th, so definitely get in there and go get your goodies before the sale ends. This is actually the biggest sale that I have ever done, I'm pretty sure, outside of Black Friday. So this is kind of like a special little spring clearance thing for 2025. So again, that's prismano.com, and go check it out before March 29th. And now back to the video. Chronic boredom. This one may seem a little mundane from the outside, but living with an almost painful level of boredom is actually quite a common symptom of ADHD and can have some pretty grave effects on an artist's livelihood. I always find myself getting bored of an art piece halfway through, or even getting bored of the art style I regularly draw in. I constantly feel the need to switch things up, which, in a way, can be seen as a good thing and has helped me quickly improve my skills over short periods of time, but the constant need for stimulation because my brain lacks the dopamine to feel content 24/7 is a really painful obstacle that I'd love to learn how to tackle. I'm always wanting things to feel new, fresh, and exciting when I really just need to focus on the course I'm already on so that I can succeed at that rather than getting bored with it and moving on to the next thing that I'll inevitably get bored of anyway. I'm always overthinking my path, the kind of art that I want to create, the kind of ideas and subject matter that I want to implement. want, and even the kind of art career that I even want to have to begin with. As someone with ADHD, it's like I have all of these ideas and all of these creative avenues and hobbies and interests that I want to explore, and it feels like I never have enough time in the day to explore them all, or to do all of my passions, or all of the things that catch my interest. I think that's definitely a really big reason why I've always struggled with stagnancy off and on throughout my career, even though I've been in this illustration and creative art industry since 2014 professionally. Do I want to run a small business, or do I want to be a full-time illustrator, or maybe I want to get into graphic design? What if I do concept art for video games and media like movies and TV? Maybe I want to do visual development. Maybe I want to do this and that, character design, environment design, all these different kinds of things. And I feel like it's definitely led me down a path of just being very confused and having an identity crisis on multiple occasions about what kind of artist I am and what I want to create and what my creative voice even is sometimes. A lot of times I have to kind of find my anchor and go back and really think about the kinds of messages and the kinds of storytelling that I actually want to portray in my artwork, and what subject matter or aesthetics or styles in my artwork I can use to best express those stories and express that creative voice that I've always wanted to portray. This has been a lifelong struggle for me, and if you're someone going through this as well, something that has actually helped me is learning how to turn whatever you're bored of into a fresh experience in your own way. If you're bored of whatever you're working on, try doing that work in a different location. For example, if you're working on an art piece that you're too bored of to finish, try finishing it in a cafe rather than mulling over it in your room. You can also try reinvigorating yourself by finding a new piece of inspiration to go along with what you're working on, to try and spice things up a little bit. Techniques like that are honestly the only way I'm just barely capable of managing it, but it's definitely one of my biggest hurdles as a neurodivergent artist. So the last one I want to touch on is something that I think even neurotypical people obviously can relate to as well, and that is the dreaded imposter syndrome. And I'm sure all of you know exactly what I'm talking about when I mention imposter syndrome. I mentioned this earlier in the video very briefly, but I feel like imposter syndrome can be one of the most debilitating feelings in the entire world when you are a creative or someone in an oversaturated industry. And of course, if you're working alongside so many incredibly skillful and talented peers, seeing all of your hyper successful peers and feeling so much love and happiness and adoration for them, and welcoming and being so excited about their success, but also at the same time feeling so down about yourself and feeling like you should be so much further than you actually are at your age, can be an extremely difficult and hard pill to swallow, especially as a neurodivergent ADHD individual. Our minds tend to develop a little bit slower than people who don't have ADHD, so it's actually quite common for us to reach our goals a few years later than neurotypical individuals. I just want to mention that there's nothing wrong with that, and if you're someone else who is also experiencing this, there's absolutely nothing to feel ashamed of. I've always prided myself in being a pretty optimistic person, but once that imposter syndrome truly sinks in, it can be tough to come out of that unscathed. Am I even a good artist? Are my efforts worth all this stress? Will I ever reach my goals? Are my ideas even any good? Or are they too silly to share with the world? The thing that helps me push through that the most is honestly just gritting my teeth and faking it till I make it. It's a slippery slope and an imperfect fix, but allowing yourself to be delusional and just pushing forward with enough optimism to shatter even your harshest critic is the only way I've managed to keep going for as long as I have. It's always good to take a step back and to look at yourself and your work objectively to figure out where you can grow and improve, but the level of self-doubt that people living with ADHD tend to go through can be astronomical in size and, more often than not, misplaced due to low self-esteem. I really truly hope that if that's something you're also struggling with, you know that you're not alone and that taking care of your mind and body will always be the most important thing. Be delusional. Make the art you want to make that fuels your soul, and never stop creating. And with that, I think that's everything that I wanted to cover today. I think the TLDR of this entire video would basically be, has ADHD made me a better artist? In some ways, Maybe. In other ways, probably not. I know it's a bit of an incomplete answer, but I mean, based off of the context of everything I said in this video, I'm sure you can understand why I've come to that kind of imbalanced conclusion. But I really do think that there are some pros and some cons to having this condition. And again, not everyone who has ADHD or is neurotypical has the exact same experience as me. And some neurotypical people can even relate to a lot of the things that I'm saying potentially, but this is just based off of my own personal experiences, so obviously take everything I say with a grain of salt. But essentially ADHD is a condition that I still do get regularly treated for, and I do get treated for it for very specific reasons. So I think overall ADHD is something that does impact my life very significantly every single day, and in my art career, especially as a creative. So I do hope that the misconception that ADHD is like some superpower or like something that makes you hyper creative and like, I don't know, I've seen so many misconceptions about it on the internet and like on TikTok and stuff, and I do kind of want to squash a lot of them as someone who has a lot of experience dealing with it as an artist and a creative overall. However, on the other hand, I also hope that the stigma against people with ADHD being incompetent or lazy or stupid or this and that, unreliable, things like that, all of those misconceptions, I also want to squash those as well, because a lot of people with ADHD are very, very capable people. We can live very happy, intelligent, and successful lives. And I think much like with anything in this world, there is a balance, and see both sides of the coin in that regard. So if you reach the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe to my channel so that you can see more content from me, and let me know in the comment section below what other topics you would like me to discuss in a future video. Let me know if any of the things I touched on in this video resonate with you, and be sure to leave a blue heart emoji in the comment section as well so that I know you reached the end of this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Until next time, my friend.